Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, three West African Sahel nations ruled by military juntas, signed a security pact on Saturday promising to come to the aid of each other in case of any rebellion or external aggression. The three countries are struggling to contain Islamic insurgents linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic States, and have also seen their relations with neighbors and international partners strained because of the coups. The latest coup in Niger drove a further wedge between the three countries of the regional bloc, the Economic Community of West African States, which has threatened to use force to restore constitutional rule in the country. Mali and Burkina Faso have vowed to come to Niger's aid if it is attacked.
Article 4.
The contracting parties undertake to combat all forms of terrorism and organized crime in the common area of the alliance. The contracting parties will also work to prevent, manage, and resolve any armed rebellion or other threat to the territorial integrity and sovereignty of each of the member countries of the alliance, giving priority to peaceful and diplomatic means and, if necessary, to the use of force to deal with situations of breach of peace and stability. Of course, everything starts with security. But the heads of state must also think about economic issues, how to bring the different countries closer together, and how to facilitate trade between our different populations. All these issues will be added to the charter in the coming days.
Pour faire face aux situations de rupture, de la paix et de la stabilité.
Now, former Nigeria Air Force spokesman, Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, joins us from our Abuja studio to discuss the security pact signed by the three West African Sahel nations and the implications for the ECOWAS bid to safeguard democracy in the sub-region. Good afternoon and welcome to Rise News. I'm going to assume that you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Good morning.
Great. So thank you for being here. So let's just start with the basics. Would you say that ECOWAS's threat on the use of force in Niger acted as a bit of a catalyst when it came to signing this pact?
Yes, I think that assumption is correct. I think what the three countries want to show, even though ECOWAS is talking about deployment to Niger, similarly, the other two countries, that is Burkina Faso and Mali, will also feel threatened that probably when ECOWAS finishes dealing with Niger, they will come to their countries. So they want to show their resolve. And by signing this agreement, which by a collective defense, you mean an attack on one is considered an attack on the other. And we have to look carefully at the wordings of this charter, which says, among other things, any attack on the sovereignty and territorial integrity of one or more of the contracting parties will be considered aggression against the other, and that will necessitate help, including armed force. So what they are saying is that in case of any aggression against the Niger, it means Burkina Faso and Mali will also consider it that it is also an attack on their own territorial integrity, and then they will come to the help of Niger. Now, the other question, having said that, we have to look at the word, external aggression. External aggression has a specific meaning on the peace and conflict studies. When you say an aggression, will such a deployment by ECOWAS be considered an aggression? Well, here, this is where the ECOWAS faces a challenge. Unless ECOWAS is able to get, the approval of the United Nations Security Council for any deployment, if it succeeds in doing that, then it may not be an aggression. However, so far the United Nations has not talked about granting that, approval for ECOWAS to go ahead. So if ECOWAS goes ahead, to launch any military intervention, the truth is that under international law, that could be considered an external aggression against the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Niger. We have seen several examples in Dominican Republic, in Grenada, and one other country where the United States, in the name of intervention in defense of democracy, because that's what this operation is all about, intervention or defense of democracy. Unfortunately, under international law, intervention in defense of democracy does not have a legal standing. Where such operations have taken place in the 3 places, the United Nations has come out to condemn the action of the United States by saying they want to restore a civilian regime. Now, unless there is, issues like genocide, issues like human rights abuses, issues like, other humanitarian catastrophe, it is only under those, arrangements that we could say it will not be an aggression against the territorial integrity of a country. And who makes that decision? International law gives the United Nations Security Council the power to finally say what is happening in Niger is a threat to democracy. What is a threat to international peace. What is happening in Niger, involves abuse of human rights or genocide or ethnic cleansing. It is only that way it makes that, determination. Then again, it will determine we have given ECOWAS the approval to deploy. Now, unless this are there, and if you ask me, I would say with the current power equation in the United Security Council, you have United States and France on the other, you have China and Russia on the other, and a vote by any of these 5 members can stop any United Nations Security Council meeting. So if you ask me, honestly, I do not see the possibility of a United Nations Security Council approving a deployment by ECOWAS.
Okay, thank you, Captain Shehu. But given that these 3 nations are ruled by military juntas, do you see the pact as a way for them to strengthen their internal stability and security, or could it potentially lead to further instability within their borders? And when we look at the pact that mentions the signatory countries will assist individually or collectively, including with the use of armed force, how do you envision the coordination of military efforts among these nations in case of an external aggression?
Even carrying out military operation in any country is a matter of sovereignty. One country A, does not have the right to carry out operations into the territorial area of another country. So by signing this collective defense agreement, when we say collective defense agreement, this term comes after NATO was formed. Article 5 of NATO says under collective agreement, attack on one is attack on all. That is to say, if there's any attack on any of these 3 countries, the issue of seeking permission for, let's say, Burkina Faso to enter into Niger and support Niger, that has been waived. So this is the meaning of this. But at the same time, again, you raise the issue. All these countries are already struggling with insurgency, with banditry. So, but again, what I want people to understand is that even before this, issue of Niger, these 3 countries, under what they call the Lipko-Goma agreement, they have an agreement similar to MNJTF. But certainly, as of that time, it had to do with economy, with agriculture, with mineral resources. But now, the fear that ECOWAS is going to deploy is what made them to come and add this collective defense element into the agreement they already had, which has been there, I think, since 2017. So this is the issue. They are struggling with terrorism on the other. They are struggling, and then now, because the 3 of them are facing the same threat. In fact, it's one of the issues. If there was a coup in Mali, ECOWAS did not deploy. There was a coup in Burkina Faso, ECOWAS did not deploy. Why are they deploying in this latest coup? You hear this argument in Niger. I am not for or against it, but these are the facts on the ground.
Duly noted. We certainly hear you. Thank you so much. Now I'm just wondering, because you singled out how this Niger coup was handled differently by ECOWAS. For those who don't, or countries that don't necessarily agree with how it handled the Niger crisis, do you foresee a case where they might also sign this security pact, whether in the near future or down the line?
Well, again, under international law, every country or a group of countries have the right to sign any charter they want, either bilaterally with another country or a group of countries. Now, the major problem I'm saying, regarding the differential way in which ECOWAS, and here, we may not blame the current ECOWAS leaders. This happened over the years. You intervene in another country, you do not intervene in another country. Any country you said you are going to intervene to restore, the issue of national pride will kick in. That, okay, you didn't enter country A because you respect them. It is here that you want to come and deploy. So this is an issue that will be a very tough nut to crack for the ECOWAS. And what I am seeing, to stop, because the more sub-regional groupings you have between ECOWAS, I want to believe the weaker the ECOWAS will become. So there's a lot of diplomatic dexterity that is needed, even whether this deployment eventually happens or not. After this Niger issue, ECOWAS has to, deploy a lot of diplomatic dexterity to ensure that ECOWAS remains as a 15-member bloc. It is going to be a very challenging issue, and if it doesn't do that, we can see the ECOWAS breaking up into smaller, sub-regional groupings again.
Captain Shehu, thank you so much for breaking it down and really letting us understand exactly how this defense pact works. But if we look at France, that has withdrawn its troops from Mali and Burkina Faso following the coups, how might this security pact affect the security relationship between these countries and France and its implications for the ongoing counterterrorism efforts in the region? Also, with Mali having left the G5 Sahel Alliance joint force, what impact do you believe that this pact will also have on the regional security cooperation, especially in combating these Islamist groups that they have in the Sahel?
Yes, a very valid point there. The G5, if we remember, was formed in 2017, and it had Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, but in addition also Chad and Mauritania. Now, Mali has already gone out because they are falling out with France. The G5 is supported mainly by France, even though there is European Union wider support, but it is an arrangement that's supported by France. Now, we must also admit that across the Francophone countries, West and Central Africa, there is this anti-France sentiment. There's anti-France sentiment. And whether you talk of France, whether you talk of UK, whether you talk of United States, or even the European Union as a body, they consider Niger as a very vital element of their fight against global terrorism. All these, groupings or countries, they have forces in Niger. So maybe we may understand why they are more concerned with Niger, falling under military regime than probably Burkina Faso or Mali. But again, it is unfortunate that this thing is coming. What is playing in Niger is not whether people like military regime or don't like military regime. What is more at play, I think the coup leaders have been very, they have been very, very, very wise in playing on anti-France sentiments in these countries. So much so that now, even most of the people that were against military regime as an idea, when the junta started talking about we are against France, you see these sentiments across all the West African and Francophone countries. So, unfortunately for France, they are facing a backlash across not only in Niger and all the other regions. So definitely, if these countries, like I said, they are struggling already, they need the presence of France, UK, US in their area to help them, at least in the gathering of intelligence. Even Nigeria needs that, because our capacity for reconnaissance and the rest may not be as advanced as it should be. So they need the presence of this thing. But after, there's also another debate. After given us intelligence, what else do these countries do in other concrete terms? Okay, I will not blame them. In their own countries, the country people will hold them responsible. What is the interest of America? What is the interest of France that you are putting troops on the ground? So to some extent, most of them under their own laws, again, their hands are tied. Apart from giving you intelligence, they may not be able to do any other thing for you. So again, in Africa, you hear the debate that, okay, they say they are helping us, but in what concrete terms? These are the issues at play.
Well said. Well, you did mention that the coup leaders have been rather smart or strategic when it comes to using anti-France sentiments, and that diplomatic dexterity will need to be employed in order for the ECOWAS to remain a 15-member bloc. But based on this pact that has been signed, how would you advise the regional bloc to proceed in its dealings with other nations that form a part of this?
Well, you see, in any action, whether you say it is military enforcement or deployment, you need legitimacy. And under international law, it's only the regional bodies that can, confer legitimacy on any action, whether it is by a single country or a group country. Now, when I say regional bodies or intergovernmental bodies like the ECOWAS, like African Union, like the United Nations at the global level. Now, unless these three bodies, support any action that ECOWAS is going to do, including military deployment, unfortunately, ECOWAS leaders will be facing a tough task. Now, unfortunately, the issue on the ground is that even within ECOWAS, the three countries that have come out to clearly say they support military intervention, probably I can say is Nigeria, Senegal, and Ivory Coast. The others, they have been attending meetings, but nobody knows. Will they go as far as support military intervention? Of course, Cape Verde, one of the countries, has come out and said they do not support military intervention. Togo has also said they will prefer, a diplomatic option. So you see, even within the ECOWAS, it will be very difficult to get all the countries agreeing. Of course, the three countries have taken themselves out of ECOWAS. Now, when you come to African Union also, we need to look very smartly at what African Union has been saying. The African Union also has a charter which decides whether a military deployment or not is. Again, the charter of the African Union is similar to United Nations. They mention issues of humanitarian crisis. They mention issues of genocide. They mention issues of ethnic cleansing. They mention issues which poses a threat to the regional security. They did not mention issue of deployment or intervention in defense of democracy. So again, ECOWAS is going to have problems. So far, what ECOWAS says is that we support the mediation efforts of ECOWAS. It's a carefully chosen diplomatic language. We support the mediation effort that ECOWAS is doing. The same thing with the United Nations. Yes, United Nations has spoken about it. The Secretary General has spoken about it. But all they say is that we call on the coup leaders to release President Mohamed Bazoum to ensure nothing happens to him. And we support mediation efforts by ECOWAS. They have stopped short. And like I said, from past history, it is very, very unlikely that United Nations will vote, because this will even include a vote by the United Nations to say what is happening in Niger is a threat to international security. And then we give the authority of ECOWAS to deploy. With the power balance in the United Nations, with the P5, at any of the P5 can veto anything that you have to have the concurrence of the five P5 countries. It is not likely to happen. So we are back to to square one. Some people say that ECOWAS is using threat of intervention as a bargaining chip. I think finally there is no exit out of this quagmire unless we go back to diplomatic solution.
Definitely, I agree with that point that you've made. But as we wrap up, looking ahead, what are the critical steps that you believe, African governments and regional organizations, of course, need to take to collectively build a resilience against this political instability and effectively curb the coup pandemic that is happening in the continent?
Well, I think we are facing the reality of what we call typically chicken and egg problem. Is it coup? Is it bad governance that is bringing coup, or is it coup that is bringing bad governance? I think we have to accept that the root cause of coups in Africa is bad governance. And unless African leaders are ready to address the issue of bad governance so that the people of Africa see the dividends of democracy in the reduction of poverty, in giving employment to the to the masses that they have, unless we have that, unfortunately, coup is not going to stop. Because again, when you see the military man, for him to do coup, he gauges the community's feeling and reaction. Unfortunately, in most of these countries, we are seeing people coming to support the coup plotters, which is an aberration. I must say, even as a military man, military coup is an aberration. We should be past military coup. But as long as there's bad governance, as long as majority of the people in any given country are dissatisfied with the government, that is only what the military man is waiting for to stage his coup. So unless you remove all these human development indexes, the minuses we have on these indexes, unless you do that, we'll continue having problems of coup. So it is up to the politicians, it is up to the political masters to ensure that they rule their countries. There is no extension of tenure. There is no, suppressing all state institutions to remain in power. Unless we do that, the military man will always have, a reason for people to complain. And when people are complaining, that gives him the impetus to say that he's going to stage a coup.
People are complaining, that gives him the impetus to stage that he's going to be staging a coup. Wonderful quote and a place to end it. Former Nigeria Air Force spokesman, Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on Newsday. Thank you for your time and insight.